ladies and gentlemen, it is time to expose these people. And I can't think of a better person than the president of Judicial Watch to drop some bombs on Big Fani. Tom Fitton joins the program now. Tom, I apologize for all of those puns. I know you are a moral man, and you are a decent man.
I can't top that last guess you had.
I would never ask you to spank Big Fani live on the show. But I will ask you, is Big Fani facing very hard time because of her misuse of the penal code?
Literally, yes.
That's well thought through answer there, Tom. Okay, so I want to start with this, and then I want to get to the Donald Trump appeals. Okay, so puns out of the way. She's opening herself up to federal prosecution here by misusing federal funds and then by firing whistleblowers, which are federally protected. Am I wrong?
Yeah, potentially, depending on what type of fraud is proved. There's a whistleblower, there are allegations, they need to be pursued, as Jim Jordan is saying. The problem is the Justice Department's also compromised since they have an interest in the political success of her prosecution, and anything that undermines that, they're going to be disinterested in. She should be subject to not only investigations related to this whistleblower complaint, but also her handling of the Trump prosecutions, which are obviously political and tyrannical from the get-go. But, we've seen this with other tyrants abroad. Usually there's a personal corruption angle to their big policy corruption, right? They're putting their opponents in jail while also taking money on the side and becoming wealthy and using public monies for their own benefit while pretending, to be the voice of the people as they destroy their political enemies. And we see this playing out in Fulton County, where Fani Willis has turned this or raised the question about whether this already politicized prosecution and effort to jail Trump to help Joe Biden's election is also marred, as if it could be further marred, by her desire to use this money that was being spent on her paramour to further her romantic interests. It's pretty sordid stuff, and I think it should result in the shutdown of the prosecution and criminal, ethical, and obviously judicial investigations of what Willis has been doing. In addition to her lawyer, I don't know if you saw what the immediate reply was to their filing on Friday, but their filing, according to those who know better and can be relied upon, basically the lawyers who blew the whistle on this to begin with, seems to be full of falsehoods and misleading statements. So are they lying to the court right now? It looks that way. I don't know how this prosecution could survive, but, it's Trump. So all rules, the rules don't apply as they would for others. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So, I have no idea what Fani's been blowing, but the whistleblower has been blowing the whistle on Fani's misuse of federal funds. Judicial Watch, as ever, is out in front suing now Fani Willis for the controversial hiring of the special prosecutor. Can you talk me through that lawsuit and what do you expect to find?
Well, we expect to find the details of the hiring. Not only was there the hiring, but then he was rehired and re-upped each as the investigation went on. And it's funny, the day after we filed the lawsuit, they started releasing some of the documents in that pleading the other day where they confessed to the illicit relationship. So we'll see what else happens. We asked for these documents. It's a straightforward request. The fact we haven't gotten anything yet and been given the runaround suggests they have something to hide. And you can bet that there will be additional lawsuits, not only by Judicial Watch, but I suspect others, to try to get to the truth of the matter here.
Tom, you've been around the block on these cases since the Clinton era and before, and I guess I would want to lean on your expertise here. I see here on your X timeline multiple tweets about Fani Willis handed lucrative contracts to her alleged lover, law partner. Fani Willis' alleged lover paid for plane tickets in her name bank statements show, along with cruise line? Is a Carnival cruise ticket like normal legal practice?
Yeah,
For
I'm
two
not
people.
aware of where what election controversies could have been investigated on the Carnival cruise line, and
Does seem like there is quite a carnival. It does seem like
yeah,
this is in fact.
um, so the question is, what is the court going to do? They don't even want to have a hearing on this, right? So their response to these, in addition to confirming the core allegation that they had the affair, they tell the judge, "Oh, you shouldn't have a hearing on this." So they shouldn't be subject to cross-examination, despite putting forward an affidavit. By the way, Mr. Wade went under oath in this court pleading. He filed a declaration or affidavit, and he swore it didn't begin until 2022. When in 2022, it's unclear. And there are questions that it began earlier, and it doesn't answer the question, well, it officially began in 2022. Was the hiring part of getting him to begin the personal relationship with her, the romantic relationship? You know,
I mean, he is
shut
charging
it down,
her.
Kenny.
He
Shut it down.
is charging her for 24 straight hours of work, straight through the night, Tom.
But just think about this. You're hiring a prosecutor, right, to do something in the public interest. And when when the information's out there that you've been hired to advance a romantic relationship, it means the prosecution's tainted. So was all the prosecution of Trump, in addition to being political, just about keeping her boyfriend employed?
Well, he has a great pedigree, you see, Tom. He's sued to get people's names changed, and he also went to small claims court once to get $11,000 back for some stolen speakers. So, I mean, this is like one of the Nathan Wade. Do not question his credentials, you see, Tom. It'd be racist for you to do that.
And he doesn't want to be questioned about his credentials under oath. So
Yes.
this is where they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to play the race card, as she did outrageously, suggesting that criticism of this conduct is racist, and suggesting that the defendants are racist in her case, which also raises issues about interfering with the jury selection process and trying to taint the jury pool. So they want to attack those who are raising questions, but don't want to have to answer any questions in court. It's the arrogance which may be their undoing, but we'll see.
So
I want to know where the governor of Georgia is in all of this.
Yeah, that's right. He's found himself in Texas. Finally found a line that he wishes to defend, but there are a lot of things happening in Georgia actually that need his attention. So hopefully Brian Kemp, who calls himself a Republican, can focus on his own state. Speaking of cleaning up in your own backyard, Judicial Watch is based in Washington, D.C. Moving up to Washington, D.C., it seems like there are major collapses happening in these Trump cases in real time. Can you weigh in on what happened in the appeals court in D.C. today with Donald Trump and presidential immunity?
Well, the D.C. court has been compromised by anti-Trump animus, right? And one of the ways, and as a result of that, they're blowing up our constitutional system by undermining the president's civil liberties, President Trump's civil liberties, and the structure of our government, meaning the privileges that attend to a president being president. And they want to charge President Trump with crimes that he committed, arguably, in the conduct of his office. And the argument that President Trump is making, well, that means no president is going to be able to operate independently, and they're going to be worried about being charged as soon as they leave office because the next president disagrees with their policy choices.
Yes.
And so guess how that argument worked out for him with the anti-Trump courts? They said no. And today, again, they said no. Judge Chutkan had said, no, you can be prosecuted for anything you did as a president if the DOJ wants to throw you in jail. It doesn't matter if you were doing it in the course of your duties and responsibilities as president. And the left-wing appellate court upheld that decision. So the question is President Trump going to seek a full review of the appeals court, or will he go straight to the Supreme Court? I suspect he'll seek a full review. But it highlights that this anti-Trump court is now willing to set up rules, thinking it will only apply to Trump. But under their theory of the case, we can prosecute Obama for Fast and Furious, for assassinating that U.S. citizen abroad, the terrorist Anwar al-Awlaki. For targeting Trump, he can be prosecuted. So all bets are off in that regard. And if Trump, and as we say in this tweet here, if Trump can be prosecuted, it's not so can Obama. Obama must be prosecuted. Because if those are going to be the new rules, they need to be applied forthwith.
What about a attorney general in, let's say, Midland, some DA in Midland, Texas, bringing in his jurisdiction cases against Joe Biden and Secretary Mayorkas for 10 million charges of human smuggling, child smuggling? Seems to be something that is absolutely going to be happening forthwith.
Yes, and under that theory of the case, I don't think they have to wait for the president to leave office before they begin their prosecutions. Right?
Let's go now.
Yeah. Because to me, if you can be charged a day after you leave office for acts that you were engaged in office, what's the distinction in terms of waiting? So you're right. And certainly state attorney generals after Biden leaves office in the least can begin prosecutions for any alleged violations of state law. But, this is in many ways, I say that's what the left wants to set up. The left wants to destroy the country, Benny, right? Mm. And so what better way to do that than to destroy our separation of powers in our constitutional system and to make any president worried about going to jail at any time? The commies love that type of chaos. So we're complaining about what might happen. They see it as a feature to be embraced.
And that is the feature, not the bug. They can then control a president through extrajudicial processes by saying, well, you wouldn't want to be you shut down travel from terrorist hotbeds. You wouldn't want to be prosecuted for that, would you? Children in cages, you wouldn't want to be charged with that, do you? We'll of course manufacture the story, wrap up smear, and then we'll make sure that you're prosecuted while in office. This actually seems like a great tactic if you really do hate the country.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the same court that the Senate Biden border invasion bill wants to give exclusive jurisdiction in terms of handling any disputes about the invasion.
Yes.
So yes, this is what we can expect. Purely political decisions. And the court really up here in D.C., because it used to be a relatively respected court, has been completely ruined by its anti-Trump animus. And it undermines not only our Constitution because of the attack on the executive branch and the president and his ability to do his job, but, we want the courts to have some respect. They're part of the Constitution, too. And if they've just kind of thrown in their lot with the Democratic Party and partisans and ideologues, and then they can't be trusted to look at these cases in even a moderately disinterested way, that's also damaging.
So I want to get your handicap on the case before the Supreme Court when it comes to ripping Trump's name off the ballot. Obviously made a ton of news. Everyone loved to report it, but that's seems to be so blatantly. It seems like it could be a 9-0 decision. I don't know. What do you think?
I would think it's going to be a majority in favor of President Trump. Judicial Watch filed an amicus brief opposing this, again, highlighting the absurdities that it will lead to. And I guess we should be admitting again that maybe they want all of that craziness to happen, where the whole elections, all of our elections are shut down. Because I tell you, Benny, as soon if the Supreme Court rules any way other than the way it should, which is to say that the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to the president, and certainly no due process be given to the president to kind of just summarily throw him off the ballots and leave him otherwise on. If the rule is you can be thrown off the ballot by a state election official's interpretation of your eligibility being a presidential candidate, all bets are off. You can bet there will be many moves to take President Biden off the ballot, other candidates for office at the congressional level as well. Every federal office holder is going to be subject to challenges based on their alleged involvement in insurrections, because, everyone says, well, insurrection means this. Well, that's in the eye of the beholder. we say there was an insurrection in 2020, except it was in a half a dozen cities throughout America, trying to destroy the country in the summer of 2020. And the left pretends that it's insurrection to dispute Joe Biden's election under law. Well, between that, those arguments, all bets are off, and everyone's going to be taken off the ballot. And you're going to have fight after fight on this. And, does that mean, what does that mean for the country? It means that we're destabilized again. We are being destabilized by this war against Trump. And it's not about, it is about Trump personally, but we should be excited about it in a negative way, because it's attacking the core structure of our government, our constitutional republic. It relies on a kind of a structure and rules and law, and they think all bets are off, and that politics should take precedence over the rule of law.
Which is always the goal of the Marxist. I think everybody, especially in our audience, has been calling this out. Judicial Watch has obviously been calling this out from a mile away, from 1,000 yards away. Final question for you, Tom. Are any of these trials going to happen before the election? Do you see that happening, or do you think that they will be sort of stuck in the morass of the process, and no one will, Trump will not see really rulings before November 2020?
I think at least one of the trials is going to happen. In the least, now they're hanging all their hopes on Alvin Bragg, the source back prosecutor who's trying to jail Trump for having a settlement agreement with a woman who was accusing him of something. So again, an unprecedented application to the law to try to get Trump. And they're going to get a conviction, I think, before the election. And so whether it makes a difference or not, I don't know.
So the Alvin Bragg case is the one you think is going to go forward?
Yeah, they're just waiting in line. When one gets destroyed, another one pops up. And we're presuming this is the last indictment. There won't be any additional indictments. We're in a crisis, Benny. And what I'm frustrated about is that all of this is fully funded by Congress. Jack Smith is fully funded by Congress. There have been no restrictions or no pushback against New York and Atlanta of Fulton County for violating the civil rights of citizens in those jurisdictions. Full funding. They're getting all the grants. Congress has done nothing to react or to push back against this, specifically the Republican-controlled House.
Incredible.
So they fully fund the border invasion. They're fully funding the effort to turn the country into a one-party state, and I'm tired of it. There are some good people up there, but they aren't showing the leadership necessary to save the republic.
No, and they never do, right? It's always Democrat light. I mean, it's like the House is more like Congress itself is more like the splits are like 20% are actual Republicans. And the rest of them just kind of like go along to get along with like the talking points that they've been given. And they've live action role play Republicans, but they aren't.
Putin recognizes what's going on, Benny. He sees, I see what the Americans are doing. They're trying to put their opposition candidate in jail. They're trying to remove him from the ballot. I know what that's like. That's familiar to me. Very Putin-like.
Records show New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg, this is from Judicial Watch, paid $900 an hour. $900 an hour. Incredible. By us, the taxpayers.
20% of his donations came from Soros.
Remarkable.
Pretty good investment by Soros, huh? He gets to get a president prosecuted.
Amazing. Why don't we ever, we never play fourth gen warfare. Like we never actually play 3D chess. Like it's so checkers on our side. And
look, if we play checkers, I'd be happy.
Yeah. Okay. So
tic-tac-toe, hopscotch, anything better than just running around chasing our tails.
So final move on the board here, Tom. Donald Trump wins in 2024. What happens to these charges? Can you game theory that for me, please?
He would direct. If I were him, I would direct the Justice Department to shut them down. Pull back the charges. He may have to pardon himself. And certainly then he should be personally appointing special prosecutors to investigate the seditious insurrectionist activities by those who tried to jail him. because this is a rogue operation, and the obstruction of justice we've seen in the Justice Department beginning in 2020 with the protection racket for Biden that continues to this day with the targeting of Trump needs to be exposed by someone who isn't a DOJ guy, but someone who reports to the President of the United States, and he should assert his constitutional authority to enforce the rule of law in that regard. We need Trump special prosecutors, not DOJ special prosecutors.
Yeah. The truth shall set you free, man. I mean, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. I think the country can handle it. I think the country can just handle like the story of what happened here. We could handle the story of Russiagate, right? Russia collusion. Like when that deteriorated and decayed and became such a farce, I think like people can handle it. I think we'll go through the same process. I think this is a brand new.
We kind of already know what happened. It's just a matter of there going to be any consequences for it.
Yes, and there were none, right, for Russia collusion.
Yep. And we know what's happening now, and we want consequences for the abuses.
Yes, one of the only places on earth, ladies and gentlemen, that fights, like actually fights, and fights in a strategic way. And it fights like a proper Irish brawler from the turn of the century is Judicial Watch. Ladies and gentlemen, please consider supporting them, their mission, subscribe to them, and follow them on social media. And you will find yourself brought to a different future than you typically are used to with the Republican Party, a future where we actually fight and win a lot of the time. And at the very least, like know which battles to pick. And Tom Fitton, of course, is the president of Judicial Watch, and we thank him for his work and for fighting, Tom. Godspeed.
Thank you for the good word.